and that is the disappearance of Gregory Howells, Howells, from Carmel Valley, California. Of course, when I think of Carmel Valley, I think of the Pebble Beach Golf Course, where the AT&T Pro-Am is played every February or March. I think it's February. And they've also hosted some U.S. Opens there. But it's one of the most beautiful golf courses in the world. It's right on the Pacific Ocean. But Carmel Valley, kind of an upper scale area, as you would expect. But Gregory Howells disappeared from Carmel Valley, California on June 17th. So today is the 23rd anniversary of his disappearance. And the guest for this episode is going to be his wife at the time. They are no longer married. She had him declared deceased in 2002. But his former wife, although I do call her his wife during the episode, but his former wife, Sherry Glazer, is my guest. And the general facts of Gregory's disappearance is that he and his wife were in the entertainment business. In fact, his wife still is. And in fact, I think she is the first guest on Unfound who has her very own Wikipedia page, and you can look that up. She's been doing, I guess you would call comedy for over 30 years now. She thinks she got attention for doing a one-woman show playing different characters. And so you will find her. You can find her on YouTube and elsewhere. But she was married to Greg. They were married for about 10 years. And he directed her play. She was the actress and he was the director. But in 1997, as you will hear her tell it, started to go downhill. He was frustrated, I think, maybe with the way his part of their career was going. She was getting a lot of attention, and he was doing some writing that was on his own that was getting rejected. And he was putting on weight. He was lying to her about some of the things that he was doing. He said he was going to this retreat to kind of get his mind right. And it turned out when he came home, actually just went to Vegas for 10 days. So Greg had some things going on. And so on the day of the disappearance, though, he was into golf, not a serious golfer, but he liked to go out there. And Rancho Cañada was the course that he used to go to. Now, you should know that this particular golf club has two courses in one location. But he used to go there to golf, and he would go out in the late afternoon and usually golf until it was dark. Well, that's what happened this time on June 17th, 1997, but he didn't come home that night. And the next morning, when the employees of the golf course got there, they discovered that his cart was found on the 13th tee of the West course. Most of his clubs were in the cart, but a couple of his clubs were actually on the ground at the tee. And his car was still in the parking lot. And if you're wondering, well, that's a little weird. I mean, wouldn't they check to make sure all the carts are in the night before they would leave? And why would they leave if somebody's car was still in the parking lot? Why would they do that? That's a very good question. And to answer that, I was actually able to track down an employee of the Rancho Cañada golf course at the time. Rancho Cañada is not open anymore. It shut down a few years ago. But I was able to track down a person who worked on the golf course at the time. And I got to talk to him for about an hour, maybe about 6 weeks ago. And I did take notes of the conversation. And you will hear my notes from that conversation after the interview with Sherry. This guy was on the scene that morning. He was one of the first people to find the golf cart there, to see the clubs, to see Greg's car in the parking lot. And Greg has never been seen since. No sightings of him, no rumors of anybody seeing him. It seems there's a couple ways to interpret this disappearance. Either one, he was on the tee and somebody came up to him and abducted him, attacked him, and took him away, or he just walked out of his life and kind of made it look like somebody attacked him. And of course, it'll be up to you to determine what you think about all of this. The title for this episode is called Setting the Stage, because Greg and Sherry were in entertainment, of course, on stage. But you could, of course, look at that word stage and look at another definition for that word as well. So kind of a unique disappearance in that it very well could be that Greg did stage his own disappearance. We know we've talked a lot about disappearances where people have seemed to have walked away. Christopher Sanders, possibly Eric Alvarado, to name just a few. But I don't know how many that we've had where we thought something was staged, as this might have been. And so I think this is another unique disappearance. Sherry did a great interview. I will tell you right now, she's a little bit of a character. She's very laid back during this interview. I don't want you to think that because of that she doesn't care. I think she deeply cares about finding out what happened to her husband at the time, Greg, back then. They had 2 daughters together. But as I've told my assistants, this is probably one of the most laid back, serious interviews I've done in Unfound's existence. Mainly because I think that Sherry is just Sherry's personality, but make no doubt, I think that she really would like to find out what happened to Greg. I think it is important to her. I think it's important to her daughters. And she does talk about how she had to, put herself together because she and her husband were a team doing these productions, and then he disappears and she's all by herself. So it was great to talk to her. We arranged it so this episode would come out around the time of the anniversary of his disappearance. Thank you, Christine, for that. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. But that is the disappearance for this Friday. Lots of articles. I've already posted a couple in the discussion group and on the page about this back then. It got, unlike some of the recent disappearances we've covered, this one got a lot of press attention. I think because of the area in which it happened. I think because Greg and Sherry were well known in that community, and especially considering the work, the entertainment work that they did together for many years. So there are quite a few articles that were written about this disappearance. And so you will be able to read those articles and then hear the interview with Sherry and just decide for yourself what happened. And by the way, there will be a map for this because I think that's very important to understand the golf course and where that tee was and how that all goes together. And then I will also be doing a video. I have not shot it yet. I'll probably do it tomorrow. I'll be doing a video to also put on the YouTube channel so all of you can better understand some of the things we talk about during the interview, because it may not be totally clear how we, as I've said, it's hard to explain maps and directions with just audio. And by now that I enjoy doing those videos. And so if I have an opportunity to do them, then I do them, especially if I think it's going to help all of you understand a disappearance better. Paula said, was it different interviewing someone who's a performer? Well, I think, like I said, it was a unique, I think it's a spectacular. I just, of course, listened to the interview today and tweaked the audio and some things. I think it's a fantastic interview simply because, I can tell when somebody is used to being interviewed, maybe not about a missing persons case, but anything. And that makes it easier for me when I'm talking to somebody who is used to being interviewed. And Sherry is certainly used to being interviewed. Maybe not about her, maybe not recently about her husband's disappearance, but about all the work that she has done in entertainment over 30 some years, because she's been quite successful. And so that certainly helped. And I think it also helped, Paula, that I also have an entertainment background. And although I would not say that I was your typical entertainment person, that I can relate to them. I think that I understand their personalities, and I think that certainly helped in this particular interview, and I think that shows through. So I think it was different to interview her, because she probably, more than anybody else that's ever been on the program, has been interviewed more than any of them. And so people who are used to being interviewed do good interviews, especially if it's about something they care about, like her husband / ex-husband's disappearance. So it was different. I greatly enjoyed it. And in fact, just listening to it today, it was just like, man, this was really good. This is really good. And she is a character. She's a comedian. The work that she does, these one-woman shows, are comedic productions. And I think that kind of shows through a little bit in the interview. Like I said, it's one of the most laid-back, serious interviews that I think I've ever done for Unfound, or ever. So that would be forever. But that's all I got tonight. I'm going to certainly have to look into this Esther Westerbarger news. And I will probably post something about that. Maybe I'll be able to get in touch with Matilda and look exactly where this pond is and everything else. Maybe I'll do a video on that too. Have to think about it. But what we do tonight, talked about last weekend's disc golf tournament. Didn't play well. Got another one coming up this weekend. Just one round though. Dr. Telesco, great interview. Love talking to her. Talked about the Mittendorf / Branham poll. Remember, there will be a map and video for this Friday's episode. Talked about Unfound on the Ground. We talk about just some signs that you need to look for if you see somebody who claims they know everything about a murder or disappearance, some things that should cause you to question really if this person's telling the truth or not. Talked about, kind of went over the rules again for posting in the group. Talked about how there is no new news for Suzanne Morphew and Vanessa Guillen's disappearances. Talked about Ryan Zimmerman and his remains being identified in Ohio. Took some questions from you. Kristen, I think, went broke, contributing to the super chat tonight. Christine and others who contributed. Christopher, a lot of Kristen. What is going on with the Chris's tonight? That's great. Everybody that contributed through the super chat tonight, I cannot thank you enough. That means so much. Thank you. Took some questions and then talked about this Friday's episode, the disappearance of Gregory Howells from Carmel Valley, California on June 17th, 1997. An episode that's called Setting the Stage. And his former wife, Sherry Glazer, will be the guest. That's all I got. Hour and 41 minutes tonight. Good show. All right, everyone. Have a great time. Be safe out there. And you'll hear me on Friday. Good night.